Hello, and welcome to the Amber Stitt Show. I am your host, Amber Stitt, and today I am lucky enough to have my friend and colleague, Baker Ronn, with me today. How are you
I'm
doing,
great.
Ann?
How are you?
I'm doing great. So today I thought we would dive into some disability insurance discussions because I know that you and I we can go off the rails a bit and talk for hours about insurance planning. But before we dive into disability insurance as our hot topic today, I thought that we would start with talking a little bit about your practice because I know that you call yourself an insurance advisor, but I think you do a lot more than that. So I thought we'd give you a chance to talk about your practice and how you work even with your partners within your firm too, to really bring a lot of client solutions to the individuals and families that you help. So I'll let you take it from
Sure,
there.
I'm happy to share that with you. So I'm actually third generation in this business. My grandfather was a life insurance agent, and so was my dad. But my dad started a financial planning firm in 1969. So we do fee-based
Wow.
planning, which means we look holistically at people's entire financial situation. I have a partner who really specializes in the financial planning and investment area. And my passion is what I call people insurance. So people kind of look quizzically when I say people insurance. What does that mean? But it's opposed to property and casualty, which insures our things,
Yeah.
insures our homes, our boats, our cars. People insurance is life insurance, disability insurance, and long-term care insurance. And that's really been my passion, I would say, for the past 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, and I know that when we talk about disability insurance, we talk about some of our clients, like our success stories. I know that you've had some unfortunate stories too, and eventually we'll talk about that in another episode. But I think that we know that it's not a fun topic. People tend to hide from it because it brings out some of those negative thoughts. And knowing that they say 1 in 4 people could need to go on claim and file a claim. I think we know it's important to talk about that with our clients. And I know that you, though, bring more of a fun element. I don't know if disability insurance could actually be fun, but I know that you try. So you shared a little bit with me about your strategy to kind of make it real for people. So I'll let you take it. I won't even intro the title of what you do because I'm not even sure how you deliver it to clients, but you've told me a little bit about the
So
goose.
I'll
Is it a
pretend that you're a
goose?
client, okay? So I'll just say, so Amber, do you see my goose? She's really cute. She has a little egg. And so I say,
Okay.
Amber, you're a goose. And,
Which, and this is funny because you asked me about my daughter. Well, she's not buying disability insurance, but my daughter, I call her the goosey girl because like a silly goose, there's all these nicknames. So I remember when you talked about the goose, I'm like, wait a minute, this is really weird because I suppose people say silly goose
but
all the
it's
time, but
relatable.
that resonated with
So
me.
it's something that
Yeah.
people, I had another client who had geese on her front porch. So for some reason, it has a familiarity to people. So when I say,
Yeah.
Amber, you're a goose and I'm a goose, like that's kind of the way you're reacting is how people react. So instead of thinking, oh, how depressing, disability insurance, I'm going to be in a wheelchair, they see this
Right.
cute goose and they get a smile on their face. And I think that they become like more open minded. So then I say to them, we
Sure.
all insure our golden eggs. So we insure our homes, we insure our cars, we insure even our jewelry. And like, really, if something happened to your jewelry, it wouldn't impact your life. You might be sad. So think about a
Mm-hmm.
friend of yours. One of my friend, her house burned down. Well, she found to live. Like she lived
Wow.
with her parents for 8 months when they fixed up their house. If you lose your car, you can always borrow a car. You can get a rental car. But if you lose your ability to go to work and earn an income, there is no other Amber. There is no other Ann. There's no one else that can step in and
Mm-hmm.
earn an income in our place. And the other thing is that's
Mm-hmm.
different about that is that as a human, you're still spending money. You're not earning income anymore, but
Right.
your expenses may go up because you also have medical expenses. So I think that,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of the goose is just something that makes a really somber topic into something kind of cute. Like
Yeah.
people just really like my goose. Like they think she's like, look at her little fluffy tail. I don't know if you can see. But she's just cute and she's fun, and it makes a topic that is something people don't want to think about. It makes them understand,
Yeah.
wow, you're right. I do insure my golden eggs, so I should insure myself as the breadwinner that provides all those golden eggs.
Right. Well, in the Pathways of Peak Performance, kind of the curriculum or the framework, we have 5 steps focusing on risk management. Even the word risk management sounds very corporate, and it could be also just, what does that mean? And I don't need that. But part of us even speaking today is to help people see if we can do some steps in advance to be proactive and not reactive. Things are going to happen. We saw things happen the last few years, and some of us are still getting sick and running families, businesses, and dealing with all the things combined. What if you have all the steps in place prior to a major event? There will be a major event. To what level, we don't know. It could be different for different people, but from even like the mindset, like the ability to have resilience with some of these things that we face, if we can iron it out in advance with potentially disability insurance or something like that, it'll help us recover or be able to survive and, not have such a awful time going through the process. And then we're not even talking about money yet. I think a lot of people also forget that their benefits need to also fund retirement. So if you're on claim early, we have to pay our bills, but what about retirement funding
Right.
as
How do
well?
you save for your future when you can barely pay your bills? And it's interesting that you just brought something up to me that reminded me about a friend of mine. So he actually was in a water skiing accident. This is many, many years ago, but he was in a water skiing accident and he became a paraplegic. He now runs the
Oh my
Chicago
goodness.
Marathon every year. And the reason why was his disability policy had a rehabilitation feature. So he had someone come to his house 3 times a week to do rehab. Now, look, this didn't happen overnight. It took him 7 years to get the use of 70% of his body. But the
Sure.
reason I tell the story is that his group contract, once he came back to the office, he was a financial advisor like you and me. Once he came back to the office, they said, oh, we're not
Okay.
paying you anymore. You're back at work. He wasn't earning an income. He was just picking up the phone and saying, hey, client, we're still here. We're here to take care of you. He was just kind of reaching out so that people didn't think he was gone permanently. So his group
Yeah.
contract, as he says, wrote him the Dear John letter. His name is actually John, and said they're not paying.
Oh my
But his
goodness.
individual contract not only paid him an income while he couldn't work, but it also paid for rehab. And so, look, again, it took 7 years to get
Okay.
him to be back to himself. But I think that that's something that's really amazing, that someone could come from being a paraplegic to not only being the top of his business, but running the Chicago Marathon every year. Like, it's almost the miracle of disability insurance.
So let's step back. I heard a couple things. He had a group plan and a plan through a
Correct.
private plan, too. Okay. So for the audience, there are podcast links in the physician edition. We talk about modified own occupation. That's more of a specialty specific. There's also private insurance that does a few things differently depending on how you structure it, but you choose, you apply, you hopefully work with an independent broker that can help you see all the features that you have access to. But the group plans, that's where, if you look at some of our previous episodes, we have modified own occupation. It's very similar where there's restrictions within. So even like some of my clients will come to me for the conversation about private disability insurance, but then we find out there is a group contract, and group contracts typically pay a percentage of your salary. And if it's free to you, typically it's taxable. But I won't get into taxes because I'm not a tax advisor, but a lot of people are surprised that the group plan is really not going to pay. So you're talking about the Dear John is coming from the work
Correct.
plan through employer benefits.
And he was shocked.
Right.
He couldn't believe that happened to him because he said, "Look, I'm not working. I'm not earning an income. I'm just back at my office to try to communicate with people to let them know that I'm still here." So, look, you and I
Sure.
would think, being advisors, that his group contract would continue to pay him, but the minute he went back to work, the group contract said,
So he was just
"Correct,
showing up. That's that any occupation, any job, if they know that you're
correct."
capable of doing anything, even if he's not showing a pay stub yet, they
They
just said
just said,
no.
"Sorry."
Okay, so the rehabilitation is interesting because I feel like a lot of people assume the rehab is to get them back to work. Like insurance companies will offer this, but they don't have to offer it. It's case by case. But in this circumstance, he worked hard to rehab himself and they credit. So it wasn't like the private plan was just trying to get him off disability. They actually gave him coverage for a period of
A
time, it
long,
sounds like,
long
in
time.
addition to his
And at
monthly.
least he didn't have to pay that out of pocket.
Wow.
How was he going to pay that out of
Yeah.
pocket when he wasn't even earning an income?
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful because I didn't even think about that piece of it because typically it's people are trying just to get off disability, like, let's hurry up, let's get off claim. But that's a very extreme. And then there's a pretty neat, I mean, unfortunate, but a neat outcome that came from not only him just having sound like the right mindset, but also the financial means that could have helped him really work hard to say, I got things covered. Now I can really focus my energy on getting
Which
better.
is what he wanted to do. His parents
And
immediately said, "Oh, John, you're going to have to move back in with us and we're going to have to take care of you." And he said, "No, no, no." He said, I'm in my 30s. He said, "I'm not planning to move in with you. I'm going to use my disability policy. I'm going to rehab and I'm going to get better." And so, it was
no.
really almost a miracle of disability insurance. It's an incredible story.
And I feel like there's also a few other little statements you say. I know that you talk about the goose, you talk about people insurance. Are there any other things that you want the audience to know when they're just starting to think about disability insurance? What other, because I know that you've been in practice for over 30 years, right? So you've seen a lot of things, but you've also worked with a lot of people. Is there anything else that is almost like a takeaway before we wrap up today that you think people should know when they're really
I
considering
think
this?
I'll just tell you a quick story. One of my clients became disabled. He actually did physical labor. He was a camera, he carried a camera around with him. And his boss
Interesting.
continued to
Yeah.
pay him even when he couldn't come to work. And so I often ask people when we're having this conversation, do you think your boss would continue to pay you if you couldn't perform a service
Mhm.
anymore? Uh,
Well, I know they ask that on the claims
right.
paperwork or the applications. Check the box. Would you have no? I've
Of
never had a
course, no,
yes.
everyone says, of course, my boss wouldn't continue to pay me. So I feel like he just happened to be really lucky that he had that relationship with his employer. But, that's the reality is you can't count on anyone else taking care of you. So you have to say,
Hmm.
what can I do to protect my family if something should happen to me, if I become too sick or if I become too hurt to continue working?
Hmm. That's another thing. We have spouses that work. Both spouses are working. So sometimes the higher earner insures their income, but they say, oh no, we don't need the other person to be insured because they don't make as much money. But I think people forget that if you have this loved one that's going on claim and needs to be driven to and from appointments and just some of these things, you might need to bring in help, nanny care or people to help you with your home as you're trying to spend time with that person because they need that support in addition medical care that you can't go to work full time. And so a lot of times we have that. It's always good to have the dual income so that maybe we can build a bigger cash cushion. But I think people also forget the impact it could have if only one out of the
So I'm
two
really
are
happy
insured.
that you brought that up. We had some clients in Tulsa who, when the man became disabled, he had brain tumors. His wife had also quit working because she became his full time caregiver. So they went from earning two very nice salaries to earning nothing. And so I think that that's just a point that people don't think about. Oh, we're just going to insure the bigger income, but they don't think about the impact on the other spouse. That you're right. She had to take him to, he
Yeah.
went to chemo once a week. She had to take him to all his appointments. She had to, when he got
Yeah.
sick at the end, I mean, there were a lot of things she had to do as a caregiver that didn't really allow her to continue working. So I think that that's something
Yeah.
that, people should consider.
So, I mean, really, the first step you can take is really getting organized within the house. Really look at the whole picture. What kind of benefits do you have at work? Learn more. Do an annual review. Sit down with your spouse or just as an individual. Go through everything at least once a year to see what you have, and then learn. There's products out there that you can customize and build, and not everybody buys the same product from me. I don't give everyone the same thing, and I know you don't either. So If anything, just do some research and really kind of think about the whole picture. And hopefully that'll help you take those proactive steps. And so, Anne, I appreciate you sharing about disability insurance. I know it's not always the best topic to bring up, but I know you and I enjoy it in the fact that we see how it can help people, and it's so important. So, and for the audience, I'm going to link Anne's bio below in the description box in the show notes so you can find her if you do need to ask her any questions or reach out to any of us. We are happy to help. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Amber Stitch Show. For more information about the podcast, books, articles, and more, please visit me at amberstitch.com. Until next week, enjoy your journey at home and at work. Thank you for listening.